What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with another podcast. What's going on in pop culture right now? Okay, I got a ton of music this week. JELEEL debut album. Armani White major label debut EP. IDK new album, his third. Aespa, their third EP. A lot of great stuff to get to there. Also, Star Wars Visions Volume 2 on Disney Plus, and of course Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the trilogy capper, out in theaters now. So a lot to get to there. Hit the link in the description below, linktree.com/nostalgiapod, youtube.com/nostalgiapod. Subscribe wherever you want to get it. Just make sure you get it. And hit the best of 2023 Spotify playlist for the best songs of the year, updated every week. Hit the link below. Let me know what's going on, and let's get into it. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Aespa's third mini album, My World. Aespa, of course, the rising SM talented four-piece, one of the leaders of the incredibly competitive fourth generation of K-pop, especially K-pop female groups. There are so many. I've been talking about a lot of them. And Aespa has been, I think, really popular from kind of their inception, but they haven't had a whole lot of music come out yet. This is only their third EP, their third mini album. And this has come after kind of a longer wait, time between albums than people expected. There's been a lot of management turnover and concerns over at SM as there was a Hybe takeover attempt, and this My World project was clearly delayed, was supposed to come out in February, so we're told. And all that's to say, it's been a minute since Aespa has released something, although two members of Aespa, Karina and Winter, were in Got the Beat, the SM supergroup, and I think feature pretty prominently on some of those songs that came out earlier this year, notably Stamp on It. The single, I think Karina in particular has a really standout piece of that song, and I thought she sounded really made herself well known on that song, considering she was with a bunch of other K-pop superstars with more experience than her. I think her and Winter acquitted themselves pretty well on that project. And now, of course, we get the Aespa comeback, and I've struggled a bit with Aespa for their music, because it's like you can clearly hear the potential and see a lot of that talent, but I haven't really loved their choreography, their dancing ability. They've only really just started being performers, going on tour this year, and I feel like the music has been there in spurts, but there hasn't been a whole lot of it. So I've been waiting to hear that progression and feel like they've moved up, because again, there's a lot of really talented groups and stuff going on in K-pop right now. So you gotta, I think, really bring it to keep up. And I would say they definitely made a big step forward on My World. Definitely my favorite project of theirs. I think it's the most interesting musically from them. Vocally, I think they've always been talented, but now the song structures, the song ideas, I think are just a bit more interesting. I'm still not really into the whole Aespa lore, the metaverse stuff, the fifth member, the AI, Navis featured on the first song. Don't really care about all that stuff. That doesn't really compel me. I just want to hear good records, and I think there's some good songs in this. Welcome to My World, I think it's a pretty effective, catchy kind of intro track. It kind of has an infectious singing vibe to it. Kind of sucks you in. I really like that. And of course, the title track, which has the music video out already, Spicy. That's a really fun banger from them. I think Karina starts off the song, comes in really hard again with a really hard, aggressive, attitude-filled flow, very similar to how she starts off Next Level, one of their earlier singles. I think Winter's vocals and her vocal strength specifically really shines on the chorus, and that's just a fun one. I think that is the kind of music I want to hear most from them. That being said, I think there's a really fun progression in the types of beats they're on with Salty and Sweet, a song we've heard the snippets of before. That is one where, man, those synths are just so bouncy. They sound great on a song like that, but they haven't really made songs like that yet, and I think that's a really fun new idea for them. The chorus, that pitch, the way they say sweet, it's just very catchy stuff. So definitely in on that one as well. I think Giselle, the verses too. I think Korea and Winter get a lot of attention with Aespa, but I think Giselle and Ning Ning are really talented as well, on the verses and really stepping up on a song like Salty and Sweet. And man, Winter's high notes, when she goes for those high notes, it's really great that she really actively hit that natural pitch. Is pretty impressive. And then Karina, again, I think she's, despite my reservations with Aespa to this point, she's clearly one of those all package K-pop idols in terms of the rapping ability, the singing ability, the presence on the mic, the stuff you can't teach. Like the way she does like the run part on Salty and Sweet, like during like the breakdown, the rap breakdown. Like man, like I think she's like really talented, and like I think her stuff with Got to Beat really showed that. It's like now this is like just untapped potential still, and like I think SM really needs to focus on Aespa and like push them forward, and hopefully with this new leadership structure they will. I think Thirsty's probably my least favorite song on My World. Slows down a bit there, but I thought I'm Unhappy right after that's actually quite impressive too, because it's kind of like a melancholy lyrical sentiment, but also like incredibly silky sound once again. And like the rapping almost reminded me of like Little Uzi Vert, which I was not expecting to hear. Good stuff. Yeah. Um, they've said, partially due to this delay with My World not coming out till now, they have a full length album already in the works. We know they have 4 solo songs that they've been performing live. We'll probably hear those on the full length. So I'd probably feel good about that full length coming end of this year. Probably should for them to keep this momentum going. But I think Aespa clearly has taken a step forward in terms of sonic ideas, um, just the overall quality of the music, the fact that they're now performing and getting out there and really getting that experience. I think they're really taking a step forward after I feel like they kind of had the training wheels on through those first 2 projects. So I think it's a great sign, and looking forward to hearing what's next from them. But how did you feel about Aespa's My World? Do you think it's a step forward the way I do? And for more K-pop reviews, more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Well Met Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Armani White's debut EP, Road to Casablanco, out now, his first release under Def Jam Recordings. Armani White, of course, the ascendant rapper who really exploded in 2022 with his hit single, Billie Eilish, major TikTok smash. But Armani didn't let it just fall to the wayside with being a TikTok flash in the pan, performing that song very famously on the BET Hip Hop Awards last year, doing the late night circuit, really getting himself out there, and I think really getting a lot of people on board with him with his performance ability. Like he's a very energetic, lively act, and I think he kind of surprised a lot of people who thought he might fade away quickly after a song that, Billie Eilish is a single, Black Dog, Big T-shirt, Billie Eilish. It has that kind of like TikTok-y, gimmicky hit where like the lyrics with the instrumental drop on the production, it's very befitting of becoming a TikTok trend. So I think there was some wait and see with what kind of artist he might be. He had like one independent project out before this. So I certainly was a bit skeptical of, or at least curious what it would be. That being said, I think Billie Eilish in and of itself is a perfectly good single just because, again, Armani has, I think, a really credible, fun flow. Like he just sounds really capable, but also confident on the mic. He has great presence. That song has since gone gold. Now, leading to this, very quickly, we had another TikTok hit out of Armani, which would be Goated, featuring Denzel Curry, another TikTok trend right now. That was a song that, I think the trend is like really kind of like besides the point with the song. The rest of the song's pretty good. Another great Denzel Curry feature, like the one he just had with JELEEL. It's like, that's pretty solid, but I was like, is this guy just a TikTok guy? Is this guy just a gimmick guy in terms of what people care about with the songs? And I heard the next single, Silver Tooth, featuring ASAP Ferg, and I was like, wow, this is very similar to Billie Eilish in terms of Armani's flow, in terms of the beat, how the beat sounds, very similar. And I was like, One Trick Pony, perhaps? I'm happy to report that's not the case, though. You listen to Road to Casablanco, again, short EP, 9 songs, really 8 songs. One of them is a Billie Eilish remix featuring Nori, Busta, and Luda, which is pretty awesome. But the other songs that I hadn't heard yet really made me feel good about Armani White, and I think he's someone that people should pay attention to and be excited about because he really switches it up. He changes what he's doing on this short EP, which is exactly what you want to hear from an artist who you'd be afraid would get perhaps pigeonholed or put into a box. But that's not what's going to happen with this because listen to a song like Big Bet featuring Fabio Foreign, Armani using a very different flow, giving you a bit of an auto-tune, almost like sing-songy kind of like flow and performance. Very different. The next song right after that, Rob Your Ex, kind of using a doubled vocal effect, has a different flow, but also notably lower tempo, lower register for Armani. Bit of a sung flow again, different from what you've heard before to this point. And then really like the exclamation point on this EP and on like this thought about Armani White really ascending to a new, I think, stratosphere and how people should think about him moving forward would be the the last like real song, "Proud of Me," featuring Friday. First of all, Friday, who I was not familiar with, sounds exactly like Charlie Wilson. Incredible singing. Autotune's amazing. But then we have church choir, man. I love choir. It is a cheat code when it comes to making rap songs. It sounds so good, but it's such a triumphant song. And Armani really getting into some lyrical stuff on the course of this EP, talking about losing a home in a house fire and things like that. And it's like really comes across as really genuine, like the genuine grind and come up that he's had to this point. And the saxophone on that song again really fits with that triumphant, uh, celebratory vibe. So I think this is a really awesome EP and does exactly what it needs to do and makes you feel good about an artist's career. And I think we should be really excited about that debut album. I'd imagine he will be a hot feature in the future, and I'm definitely looking forward to more music from Armani White. This definitely exceeded my expectations. But let me know what you thought of this EP, and for more rap reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of JELEEL's debut album, Real Raw. JELEEL, rising hip-hop artist, signed to 10,000 Projects. This is his debut after I think a pretty rapid rise the past few years. Notably, his song Dive In from 2021 has more recently exploded on TikTok like many hit songs do these days, and is one of the classic examples of a song that got even bigger once it got a sped up, up-tempo version of itself, which you now listen to officially on Spotify as well, of course. And he just released his full-length debut. I'd say it's interestingly like a lot of songs, 17 songs, but still only 30 minutes. So it's a lot of really short songs, which kind of fits what he's going for, right? JELEEL is a hip hop artist that is very much in that rage music mold that we think of with Playboi Carti and Yeet, other people like Destroy Lonely and Ken Carson. This is a really vast sound at this point that's super popular, one of the most popular subgenres in music. And JELEEL definitely fits that mold just because he is so high energy, one of the most energetic new artists I would say there is in hip hop right now. But he doesn't just stick to that lane. There's some more traditional hip hop on here, sometimes even like more hyper pop and dead stuff than necessarily hip hop. But the through line is that I think he uses autotune really well and just has incredibly high energy on the mic as a performer. And I think it really makes his music like refreshing. Like I haven't been the biggest fan of rage music stuff. It's definitely like a less is more thing to me personally. But for JELEEL, he just feels like kind of a breath of fresh air in this like scene in this subgenre. And I'm really interested in what's up for him next. I picked him to be an XXL freshman this year in 2023. I think that's a pretty safe bet. We'll see what happens in a month or two with that. But yeah, I love Dive In. And it is one of those songs where the sped up part is like even catchier. Like I gotta say, like I'm not the biggest fan of like sped up music and this like trend that's happening where like the artists almost feel like they have to officially release a sped up version of a song because it's what's on TikTok just so they can get those streams and get paid and stuff. It's not really their vision. Although it's not like any different than how DJ mixes used to work back in the day. Now it's just officially part of what the artist is co-signing. I do think it's pretty good though. Both versions of the song I think are awesome, but just really high tempo, energetic song. Like I said, like JELEEL, there's just an aggression to him that's so fucking fun. Um, God Sent track 2, really cool use of guitar that you don't hear all that often in this kind of music. Shots goes incredibly hard, especially the Denzel Curry feature. Denzel fits this kind of sound like a glove. We know how energetic and hard Denzel can be. Uh, Furthermore, let's see, just like I said, a lot of tracks. They're pretty short, but yeah. Where is it? JELEEL, yeah, towards the end. That's it. Very much a Cardi flow, but I like how it's just funny hearing JELEEL refer to himself in the third person, but definitely a Cardi flow for sure. Cardi hip hop flow, which I know are pretty rare these days. Ride the Wave, one of his other bigger hits. It's been out for a while. Has a nice guitar line, but also a different delivery from JELEEL, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah, I love the aggression. I like when he pitches himself down on songs. There's a bit of an up and downness to him. It doesn't feel nearly as samey as I would have expected for this kind of. It doesn't feel nearly as samey as this kind of music. And yeah, I think I'd imagine there's going to be some more hits on this. Notably, his song "Gnarly" featuring Armani White, which I think is a really fun song. That was a single from earlier this year. It didn't make the project. I was a bit surprised by that, given how hot Armani is these days as well. But no matter, JELEEL, definitely someone to pay attention to. Rising hip hop talent, rising, I would say, face of rage music as well. So check him out. Let me know what you thought of the album. And for more hip hop reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, Welcome to Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of IDK's third album, F65. IDK, Maryland rapper, back with his third album, first since 2021. Of course, he had an EP come out last year as well. A lot of music to IDK's name at this point. I think, especially the past few years, the past few drops, people have started to really feel good about IDK. Is he the biggest rapper in the world? Is he the most mainstream? Certainly not. But he has really come into his own creatively and made a lot of great, wide-ranging music. I've certainly been impressed with him for the past few years, past few projects. And of course, this new album, F65, very excited to hear something new from IDK because you don't know what that's going to be. He's that kind of rapper. And I am happy to say that I think F65 is the best album he's ever made and continues this upward trajectory of incredible creative growth and just an amazing progression as an artist. I think IDK is incredibly talented, draws from a lot of really impressive influences, and is able to execute on a lot of different kinds of sounds, a lot of different songs, and I'm a huge fan of this. This is I'd say a pretty long track list, 22 songs, 52 minutes though. It's a bunch of interludes. It's not nearly as long as the 22 songs would suggest. Perhaps you could still trim this down a bit. I'd still think it's a bit expansive. But man, the stuff that's good on this is really, really good. And I think it's just kind of hit after hit after hit for like the majority of this track list. Maybe it fades away a little bit at the end, but man, I think IDK really smashed this. Start right off the bat with track 2, Pit Stop. I think this is one of my favorite songs of the year thus far. The drums, the bass, IDK's flows, plural. He has many flows throughout this album, really switches it up. He often switches it up halfway through a song, which is so cool and so impressive. But when you hear like these like kids singing, these children singing, brings you right back to Kanye We Don't Care off College Dropout. And I think the past few records, there's like some Kanye influence really shining through with IDK, the type of rapper he is, not afraid to necessarily sing, but also just, man, he switches up his flows so much. There's so many production flourishes. It's just consistently engaging music. It never feels really samey at all. And I think Pit Stop is just a banger of a song, man. Right after that, you have Thug Tier, featuring Fat Trell, his fellow DMV rapper. Man, the piano on that sounds so good. Again, IDK's flow is awesome. Kind of does like a call and response type rapping style, which I always love. The melodic chorus is really good. Talking about losing his brother, really getting into some serious shit there, of course. Soon after that, we have Salty featuring NLE Choppa. I was not expecting to hear IDK and NLE go bar for bar, but that's exactly what they do. It goes so hard. Kick drums are incredible on that. One of the lead singles soon after this is Mr. Police, which got some attention as a single. IDK sings, you get the piano, but also has like a really impressive lyrical progression where it starts off being like submissive and afraid of the police, leading to a more aggressive, antagonistic sentiment towards the police. I think that's a really impressive song for what it's really talking about, and kind of almost gets into like a show tuney, like shoegazy vibe towards the end. Really impressive progression again. Pinot Noir, I also quite like. Really fast flow from IDK, some interesting dubbing, but like with the drums, like there's just so much texture to the beat and like how that song sounds. Nice Saucy Santana feature as well. Elmira, like out of nowhere, is like an Afrobeat song. Was not expecting that. Let's see. Further on, we have Tele Kalur, hard to say that one, which he gets into losing his parents. I thought was a pretty moving one. 850 We on Top featuring Rich the Kid. Really hard, fun switch up. New flow once again from IDK. Not really much of Rich the Kid feature. He's barely on the song, but IDK more than makes up for that. I think he's great. Rabbit Stew has a banger beat. Heck, the Snoop Dogg interlude is actually like Middle Passage. That is actually like a really like moving like consequential clip that I thought was pretty impressive. Still Your Man, I love the piano on that. And then kind of out of nowhere for me, I guess it shouldn't be surprised given the F65 album cover features IDK with a racing helmet on. But St. Nicholas is just David Croft from Sky Sports over in the UK doing Formula One commentary, talking about Lewis Hamilton and other racers. And I was like, where the hell did this come from? As a huge F1 and Lewis Hamilton fan, I was like, this is fucking awesome. I was not expecting this. This is really fun. And then you actually get more of Crofty's commentary on Superwoman, kind of on the outro, and then Freetown as well, the last track. Don't know if it necessarily fits the through line of like the beginning of the album, but as an F1 fan, I was like, this is pretty fun. You know, sample David Croft. He's an amazing commentator. Why not? I was at best a bit disappointed in Up the Score, like Benny the Butcher. Like, you know, I'm always happy to hear the Butcher coming, but it wasn't the strongest Benny feature. I wish that would stood out a bit more. So yeah, long album, man. IDK is just a really impressive guy. I think he's incredibly talented, but also really interested in pushing himself, pushing the sounds of his music, the types of tracks he wants to make. Just a really impressive artist. I'm really happy to see he's going on a headlining tour this year in the U.S. I've seen him open up in the past for Ferg, but it's really cool to see him going out and headlining his own tour. He's certainly worthy of that status at this point, so really happy for him. And yeah, let me know, how did you feel about IDK's F65? Do you think this is his best album like I do? And for more rap reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Star Wars Visions, Volume 2, Season 2. Star Wars Visions is back on Disney+. 9 more episodes. The anthology series, non-canon animated series. Season 1 was a big surprise. Not that I wasn't hyped for it, but it was better than I could have ever expected. And, you know, showing such a loving homage to anime and really Japanese culture through Star Wars storytelling was a lot of fun. And I think what made Star Wars Visions Season 1 so refreshing is that when you're not constricted by canon, especially a canon so specific and detailed as Star Wars, when you're not restricted by canon, the creators are free to just tell, I think, more inspired storytelling. You know, it's an obvious thing, but Star Wars Visions really took that a step further by introducing like new ideas and new spins on Star Wars storytelling and Star Wars thinking. You know, and that really just made me so excited about the prospect of more Star Wars Visions, because it was actually willing to be bold and try things. That doesn't mean some things work as well as others. There's ups and downs with that approach, but it's just more inspired storytelling when you're doing something like this. And, you know, I'm really happy that Lucasfilm was able to go ahead with another season. You know, James Wog over at Lucasfilm, this is kind of his baby. And what's really cool about Season 2, Volume 2, which I didn't expect either, is that we've almost branched beyond the conceit of Season 1. Only one of the episodes in Season 2 was made by a Japanese studio. In fact, it's an American-owned one. This time around, were made by animation houses from all over the globe. And it's kind of taking like the next step in that kind of storytelling, that kind of approach, where now it's like specific cultures putting their own spin on Star Wars storytelling and like self-actualizing Star Wars within themselves, within their culture. And that is, I think, a really, again, awesome, inspired thing to do. If you think back on Season 1, I look back really fondly on the episode The Ninth Jedi, which was incredibly compelling, self-contained, of course, left you wanting more, but most importantly, introduced a new conceit to Star Wars, which was the idea that the lightsaber color was actually dictated by the wielder's attunement and connection to the Force. And on top of that, it was a really like fun twist in how that story was told. I think this time around, there are some interesting ideas along those lines. Look no further than Episode 1, titled Sith, where, you know, it's like the Force is almost used as a way to be creative and make art. And I think that was really cool. What's really fun about Star Wars Visions Season 2 is the animation styles are a lot more varied as well. You have, you know, traditional hand-drawn animation, 3D CGI, 2D art, claymation, very vast, very different. Again, really adds to everything. Really fun. I thought episode 1 was a cool highlight for sure. Just really the way it popped. That was a very artistic presentation of Star Wars. The Sith design was very cool. Nice shout out to the Grievous wheel bike. Episode 2, Screecher's Reach, I also liked quite a bit. That's from Cartoon Saloon, the Irish studio. The Sith Ghost was quite spooky, but everything about that episode kind of lent itself to calling back to Dagobah and the cave in Empire Strikes Back. I enjoyed that one. The zoomed out shots of the landscapes were quite beautiful as well. Episode 3, that's from Punk Robot, the Chilean studio, the claymation style with the two sisters. That one was interesting. Episode 4 I thought was quite impressive. That was I Am Your Mother from Aardman, the British studio. That one's a bit cheeky, a bit fun. Lower stakes for sure, but also just kind of heartwarming and enjoyable. Not everything has to be super violent. That was a fun one though. My favorite episode of season 2 would be episode 5, Journey to the Dark Head. This was made by the Korean studio, Studio Mir, and this one has, even though it's Korean, it has heavy anime vibes in terms of the dialogue and the voice acting styles, and kind of like Ninth Jedi, really brings you back to this fully formed world, right? This ongoing Jedi Sith war, Jedi Council, this character with prophetic visions, this young Jedi Padawan. That one I think is beautiful and stunning, and just like the Ninth Jedi, it's so engrossing to the viewer because there's so much wonder, the classic Star Wars wonder present in that story because it just feels so fully realized as a world. And I really like the journey that those two characters go on. The Sith antagonist again is very spooky and compelling, and there's, I think, just some really epic moments. I think that's a clear highlight as one that's very easy to rewatch. Journey to the Dark Head. Really liked it. I think the duel atop the speeder, once they're approaching the heads, that was pretty epic. The music in the cave when they're dueling is almost Bebop-esque, Cowboy Bebop-esque in terms of the horns and whatnot. When they dive out of the sky, those visuals, with the statues and the sun shining down, just a big vista shot, just really gorgeous. That kind of stuff, I think, it's so many Star Wars trademarks, but also just really feels like its own thing. So beautiful. Episode 6 I liked a lot as well. This is from Studio La Cachette, the French studio. The Spy Dancer. This one is, I think, kind of cool style. I don't know how you call it. I think this is more of a 2D art style. And I like how it progresses. Naturally, it's a story about family and stuff. And the combat in that short is fun. It's almost the rhythmic, dancing combat, kind of cool. Almost maybe it takes you out of it if you're not willing to roll with it. But I thought it was pretty fun. I think my second favorite episode would be episode 7, The Bandits of Golak from 88 Pictures. This is a Indian studio, and this is probably the greatest example of all of a culture being represented via Star Wars storytelling. There's definitely a South Asian flair to the visuals, to the voice acting performances, to the just depiction of things in the background and stuff. It felt South Asian in an amazing way. And also I think it's gorgeous animation, probably the best looking short of all. And I think it was just really compelling too. This young brother trying to protect his Force sensitive sister from the Empire and from, falling into the wrong hands. And then the train sequence, the extended train sequence, is pretty epic. Speeder bike chase from those rebels, it looked like a Clone Wars episode, the quality of the animation, And then we had the Inquisitor show up, and then we have the older Jedi in hiding, pulling out the lightsabers out of her cane. Kind of reminded me of Terrace Nube from the Clone Wars, and having a lightsaber within something else, pretty epic. But what I really enjoy about Visions is it does kind of manage to make you feel or think about something in a very short runtime. These are all 18 minutes, 12 minutes, or in that range. They're short. They're vignettes by design, but I think they do a really good job of just kind of getting that point across. Episode 8, The Pit, which is the one that it's from the Japanese studio Dart Shitajo, but actually co-produced with Lucasfilm. Interestingly enough, the only one that Lucasfilm was directly involved in creating. And this one definitely gives you some Dark Knight Rises vibes in terms of like this big pit, people trapped in it. Guy climbs out to help everyone. And then if you compare this along to episode 9, the final episode, Ao's Song from Triggerfish, the African studio, both of these kind of lend themselves to like an environmental impact, right? Like the impact of, or environmental message, the impact of like strip mining and like taking natural resources away. Not an unfamiliar idea, of course, to Star Wars storytelling. Look no further than the Empire and how they operated during their time. But I think this was pretty compelling. The Pit, I think, is a really strong one. Really makes you feel, and one of the darker episodes as well in terms of dark themes, So overall, I think Vision Season 2 is just quite compelling for being an example of taking the next step with this kind of series. I wasn't necessarily sure if that's what this would be, and it had a lot to live up to. Because again, I thought Season 1 was so special with episodes like The Duel and Ninth Jedi and The Village Bride and The Elder. There are some true bangers, some true highlights. And at this point, I'm expecting them to make a Season 3 of Volume 3, because this kind of anthology non-canon format is a great way to get hours logged on Disney Plus, make Star Wars content, but this doesn't feel like saturation, right? Because it's non-canon. This is allowed to just be what it is, and will be liked for that. This doesn't take away from anything else. It's purely additive, but also so inspired and sometimes heartwarming, sometimes really exciting. And this is the kind of thing that you should want from non-canon storytelling. That's why I'm so disappointed still with Marvel's What If, which just played it so incredibly safe and answered the question, what if, as little as humanly possible. It's like barely, like little minor things. Visions is truly a what if thing when it comes to, going outside the canon box. So I'm a huge fan of Visions. Let me know, how did you feel about Visions Volume 2? Did you like it more or less than Volume 1? What was your favorite individual episode of Volume 2? And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Yes, Marvel is back in our lives once again with the trilogy capper. I'm going to spoil this movie, but right off the bat, before I do, I want to say I like this movie quite a bit. I think it's a really effective end to a story a lot of people are invested in, a really fitting send-off for a number of characters that have been quite well received and well liked for several years now at this point. And even though it's been, a 6-year wait since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, of course, we've seen the Guardians pop up in some Avengers movies and Thor 4 just last year. But this really reminds you of why people like these characters in the first place, why James Gunn is one of the few directors that put their creative stamp on Marvel filmmaking. And I think the absence of the Guardians of the Galaxy moving forward definitely opened up a lot of questions for the future of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in terms of audience investment, because I think this is an excellent example of paying off audience investment and showing the highs you can achieve with franchise filmmaking when you've kind of done that work and really got people on board with your journey. In a sense, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 feels a lot like a final end note, capper, end game, if you will, on that, early era of Marvel. If we think of where we've been at recently, with no announced plans for the next Thor movie, and Chris Evans and Downey long gone now, the Guardians, kind of that next big pillar. Obviously Scarlett Johansson's gone, Mark Ruffalo we assume is in the past, Jeremy Renner, like the Guardians of the Galaxy are like the next step to kind of exit stage left, if you will. And will some of these characters come back? I assume some of them will one day. Marvel's never going to stop until they burn to the ground, so we'll probably see someone eventually. But on the other hand, Dave Bautista, Zoe Saldana, they've not really hid the fact that they're looking forward to, happy to leave these characters in their past, even though they've enjoyed their time. So it really feels like the end of something. But it's definitely a really effective trilogy capper. Probably, I mean, I think easily. This is the best Marvel trilogy. There's only a few, right? Captain America has a weak first entry, Iron Man has a weak second entry, and a polarizing third entry. I guess the Spider-Man movies, in conjunction with Sony, come to mind as well, but Spider-Man Far From Home isn't anything too special to me. So I would probably put the Guardians as like the most succinct creative trilogy within Marvel. And we just saw Marvel trilogies when they go bad this year when Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania came out, something that felt like anything but an Ant-Man movie and more about an MCU storytelling servicing movie. You know, this is not what Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is. It's largely incredibly self-contained. There's no other MCU cameos. It's just the Guardians extended group, and it's great that that's what it is. So I quite enjoyed it. I would probably say the first Guardians is still my favorite, but I would put Volume 3 above Volume 2. I don't know if this will be nearly as rewatchable because I think what's pretty interesting about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is that it's quite dark, quite melancholic. You know, it's definitely not nearly as kid-friendly as certain other Marvel movies, that's for sure. So I don't know how fun certain aspects of this movie will be to revisit, but I think it's definitely a worthwhile effort, and I would endorse it as one of the better MCU films we've got in the past few years, given the up and down nature of Marvel, you know, past few years. So I'm going to get into spoilers now, and there's really a lot to get into with this one. It's a lot of fun. Let's see. So, you know, if you think about, like, what... I don't really have any expectations about, like, what this is supposed to be, right? Because, like, the Guardians, like, pop up in the beginning of Thor Love and Thunder last year. Pretty meaningless appearance. Didn't really make a difference to me. It was more about getting Thor out of their fold than anything else. So from here on out, I was like, all right, let's remember what happened in Volume 2. And I had to read Wikipedia to remind myself. It's been a while. I haven't rewatched it in a while. Adam Warlock shows up very quickly. Will Poulter's character, the post-credit scene of Volume 2. And, you know, I knew about Warlock as a comic presence, but I didn't really know what to expect about how the MCU would treat him. And he's kind of played for laughs, kind of played as like a, you know, this like artificial man who doesn't really understand what's going on. So he's this very young and picking up on social dynamics. And he's kind of played for humor, honestly. But the opening like set piece where he goes to nowhere and like fucks up the Guardians in pursuit of Rocket for the villain of the film, the High Evolutionary. Warlock fighting was pretty fun. Will Poulter looks pretty amusing, all golded up, you know, gold face paint as well. But like, I guess the payoff with Warlock throughout the film, what happens to him at the end, actually feels like it lands in a good place. You know, his quote mother character, the High Sovereign, Elizabeth Debicki's character from Volume 2, small role, doesn't really do much. That's kind of just a thankless check for Debicki. But yeah, moving on from that, you know, I think the other big aspect of this, right, would be Gamora's back. Different Gamora, though. Remember, Gamora, of course, sacrificed herself at Avengers Endgame. You would have thought that that would have been it, but no. We have the other alternate past timeline, Thanos timeline, Gamora. But it presents itself to interesting storytelling with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because this Gamora has no relationship with Peter Quill. Certainly is not dating him. So you basically get to have a whole new Gamora, different spin on the performance from Zoe Saldana, and just a whole different dynamic between really the two lead characters of the Guardians. And I think that works to fun effect throughout as this Gamora learns what Quill's like and leads itself to some really funny stuff. I love the set piece probably at the end of Act 1 where the Guardians with Gamora in tow go after, I forget the name, the corporation that the High Evolutionary runs to get some code stuff basically to help save Rocket's failing health. And there's just a lot of fun set pieces. Nathan Fillion's there as like a security guard chief, and some fun visuals, some fun action set pieces. Everything on that part was really fun. In general, like from that point forward, like it's a really strong Mantis film. Like if you think about Mantis introduced in Volume 2, we've seen it with the rest of the Guardians from here on out. Definitely Mantis is given the most to do in this movie. Some of the best lines, the most like character agency as well. I think Mantis has really come into her own as like a corollary to the Drax character in terms of giving you like this really fun humor in the way they play off each other well. Really enjoy that. Of course, Drax, Dave Bautista just has those line readings down. It's hilarious stuff still. Like the biggest laugh out loud stuff still comes from Drax. And I gotta say, like the Guardians films, like still by far the funniest Marvel stuff. You know, like we talk about the Marvel tone all the time, and we talk about the when other things don't give us that, right? When we think of like the Matthew Reeves Batman, which is so on the other side of the spectrum in terms of darkness and seriousness, right? But man, there's really something for like just the like matter of fact humor that you get from various characters in the Guardians ensemble, and I think it's quite effective once again in this movie. So yeah, High Evolutionary, new character played by Chukwudi Owuji, who's not an actor I was super familiar with on the surface. Then I remembered he was in Peacemaker. There was the James Gunn connection came in. I thought he was really fun as the villain, as this kind of like self-obsessed god complex type character who does all this genetic engineering and tries to make a utopia and make the perfect species, make the perfect world, self-important. Really committed performance, really energetic from Wuji, and also it's a personal story. It's not coming from anywhere else in the MCU. It's not Kang the Conqueror getting introduced. No, this is also the guy who fucked up Rocket. The reason Rocket is a sentient raccoon in the first place. And getting all that Rocket backstory is really the core crux of the conflict and the emotional core of this film. And I think because the villain is like the direct oppressor to one of the characters we've known and loved since we first saw him in 2014, you know, it really works. And because of this, you know, Rocket's largely sidelined for the majority of the film, but in its place, you get all these flashback scenes, you know, these like dream state scenes while Rocket's incapacitated, learning about what happened to Rocket and how he got to be fucked up in the head after getting experimented on by High Evolutionary, meeting these other creatures that were in the same boat as Rocket in the past. One of them, this otter, voiced by Linda Cardellini, funny enough. You know, we flash back to that quite a bit. Like it really intersperses us and breaks up scenes in the present, and I think it largely works pretty well. Like you're really invested in Rocket. There's this, you know, the scene at the end where you think maybe Rocket's not going to end up making it at the end. They really make you feel like it's going to happen, and because again we have audience investment with these characters, it's like starting to really hit you as an emotional beat. So I really liked all that Rocket stuff overall, even if a lot of that stuff, you know, that is more of the darker stuff that you don't usually get in MCU. So probably not the funnest stuff to revisit. It's certainly not the most kid friendly, but I think it all works pretty well and pays off well. Um, yeah, just thinking about like speaking of fake outs, like right at the very end, of course, you have the fake out with Peter Quill seemingly sacrificed himself really on Rocket's behalf, and is starting to die in the vacuum of space. And I was like, wow, they did it. Wow, they managed to factor in a Quill sacrifice, and Star Lord's off the board. They pull it back. Warlock becomes full good, saves him. It's like, okay, I would have really respected them killing off Quill. You know, I guess we're kind of reserving that for only a handful of characters, right? Like, if you think about the core Marvel characters that have got that like true like sacrificial death like that, it's been obviously Downey and Tony Stark, uh, Black Widow, Scarlett Johansson, and technically not, but really Chris Evans as Cap. So like the three most famous actors in the MCU got that kind of send off, and really no one else has. You know, I wonder like if that was ever on the table, because like even like Pratt has seemingly been looking forward to leaving that behind, the way he's leaving Jurassic World behind, and maybe he'll come back one day. I would not be shocked at all, but interesting. You know, I was kind of expecting someone to go, whether it was Dave Bautista or Zoe Saldana. Well, they probably couldn't do that again. You can't kill Gamora twice, right? Like that just wouldn't feel as impactful a second time. I'm not sure. I was expecting some kind of character death, but I think the movie still like really wraps up in a nice way. That like the fact that none of the main cast dies, actually not a big deal at all. You know, I think everything has a sense of finality without the finality that death brings. So still quite enjoyed it. Yeah, man, I think it's a fun time. I quite enjoyed it. Shout out Maria Bakalova as the voice of Cosmo, the speaking Russian dog, astronaut dog, cosmonaut dog. I just enjoy her voice acting in this. She's pretty fun. I get Kraglin a bit, Sean Gunn. He's all right. You know, nothing too fancy. Yeah, I think it's, you know, for Marvel standards, like I said, this is one of the most like creatively engaging, uh, clear through line type movies. Like you really see the vision and you feel the finality. So hats off to James Gunn for fulfilling this vision, now going off to run DC. He's definitely done with the MCU now, but I think he definitely left his mark. That's for sure. Yeah, at this point, I'm trying to think, like, what's the next Marvel movie coming up that has a chance to approach anything like this in terms of audience investment and payoff? And, like, no offense to the Marvels coming out at the end of the year. That's our final MCU movie this year, but I don't think there's enough attachment to Brie Larson's Captain Marvel and Kamala Khan from the TV show. It's just so new. Can't be that one. It probably has to be next year with Captain America New World Order, because of Sam Wilson. But even then, like, I don't know if people love Sam and love Anthony Mackie the way they love the Guardians, So we'll see. Marvel definitely has their work cut out for them in terms of getting the future established in terms of things people really care about, and maybe they're really going to focus on brand new stuff down the line, like the Fantastic Four one day, one day, I mean, we know it's like 2 years out, like the X-Men one day, and like a lot of these other Marvel MCU players that are already out there maybe aren't going to get that far. We'll see. A lot to think about. Next Marvel thing, actually, Secret Invasion on Disney Plus, the first series of the year, which I think actually looks pretty good. Marvel clearly has been paring back, only releasing one TV show in the first half of the year. A big change from the past 2 years. So we'll see if the MCU fatigue starts to walk back. Notably, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is looking at a softer box office opening than Volume 2. I think it's very interesting to think about that. Worldwide opening, I'd expect to be flat or even below, but big part of that's the China gross is going to be a fraction of what happened in 2017 for many reasons, not all on Marvel. But Marvel's performance domestically, a lot of that we have to kind of lay at MCU's feet. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania really tanking, paling in comparison to Ant-Man 2 box office. So I wonder if some of Ant-Man's sins and that malaise with Marvel is going to be applied to Volume 3. And of course, when I'm talking about like general audiences, which take the numbers over the top, obviously the fans and the faithful will be there regardless. But I'll be curious to see what the legs are with Volume 3 more than anything else, because in 2 weeks you get Fast 10 coming out and the summer's pretty stacked. So we'll see what happens there. But for more movie reviews, more Marvel, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. All right, and that's going to do it for us this week. Next week, later week, at least right now, but we're looking at the Jonas Brothers comeback album after a few years, the K-Tremine collab album between Amine and K-Tranada, this new FX FBI series, Class of '09, featuring Brian Tyree Henry and Kate Mara. 3 things I'm definitely interested in. We'll get to some other stuff as well, so make sure you subscribe, let me know what's up, and I'll see you next week.